Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey. 2023 is finally here, and for some of you, hopefully that means you decided to make this the year you finally publish your first game. Here are some of my tips for how you can achieve that, or how to set goals in general. And in the end, I will also talk about my own personal goals, both as a Steam game dev, as well as YouTube, and some more personal goals. Setting actual clear goals is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Having clear goals is kind of like driving on a racetrack. You can see where the track goes, and you know that if you keep following the track, you will reach the end. Whereas without goals, it's kind of like driving in the desert. There's no clear indication where you're going. Maybe you're going forwards or maybe not. I'm pretty sure there have been some studies that show how just writing down your goals massively increase your chances of success. So if there's something you really want to do, like for example publish your first game, then take some time to write down a clear goal. Something that I personally find very useful is setting SMART goals. That's an acronym. The S is for specific, meaning defining clear numbers or actions rather than vague descriptions, like for example launch a game on Steam. The M is measurable, meaning you can measure progress and completion, like for example you've completed 10 out of 20 mechanics for your game. The A is for achievable, meaning something you can actually achieve, so don't set a goal like I want to build Call of Duty or World of Warcraft by myself. If you're working solo, make sure you select a project that is doable by a solo developer with your skill set. The R is for relevant, meaning goals that make sense to you. For example, multiplayer games do tend to do very well, but if you only like playing and making single-player games, then build what makes sense to you rather than chasing just what is popular. And the T is for time-bound, meaning there should be a time limit on the goal. For example, launch your first game on Steam by June 23. Personally, I find this acronym to be extremely useful. Whenever I have something that I want to do, I always think back to it. For some clear steps, I actually made a really great video all the way back in 2020. So the video is 3 years old, but the content in the video is really timeless. It's just as valid today as it was back then. I even renamed that video just now, so it's titled 7 Steps to Become a Game Developer in 2023. Go watch that video to see a clearly defined path for how you can achieve that goal. Here's a super quick summary. First, build a bunch of super small games to get acquainted with the tools. Then watch some basic and also intermediate tutorials on both Unity and C#. This step helps you familiarize yourself with exactly what is possible. After that, create a very simple game. It's very important that it's a complete game, meaning something playable from start to finish, so it's not a prototype. Then read the excellent book Clean Code and research clean code principles. This will improve your skills as a developer and programmer tenfold. Then make a 3-month game, and very importantly, publish it on the Steam or the App Store. This will help you learn the process of actually launching a game and getting player reviews. After that, read and study Code Complete. This is another excellent book. It's even more detailed than Clean Code. It will really help solidify your knowledge of clean code, which will massively help you build any game you can imagine. And finally, make and publish a complete 6-month game. You can follow all these steps in 1 year, and if you do, then in 2024 you will look back and be amazed at how much you've grown. Definitely go watch that video to see all of these steps in detail. Like I said, the advice in that is really timeless. That clear path is just as applicable now as it was back then, and it will still be applicable many years from now. Now, one thing that a lot of people struggle with is actually a word that I really don't like, that is motivation. I see lots of comments like that on these kinds of game dev goals videos. There's always tons of people saying, how do you keep working on a game when you lose motivation? Personally, I don't think you should rely on motivation at all. The reason is because that word, that feeling, is not really in your control. It comes and goes, it's very random. Instead of motivation, what you should do is you should rely on self-discipline, which you can control. So my advice to you is, if this is something you truly want to do, then go ahead and do it regardless if you feel motivated or not. Treat it with the seriousness that you feel about this goal. If you really want to do it, then go do it whether you feel like it or not. I know that sounds overly simplistic, but that really is the only way. There's no magical way to suddenly create a burst of motivation from thin air when you don't feel like it. There are times when game dev is hard. Even if you love the game you're making, there will be parts you don't like. For example, for me, I hate making trailers, but if I want to launch my game, I know I have to make it. I also hate worrying about music and sound effects, but again, if I want to achieve my goal of completing the game, then I have to push through those parts. I don't want to do any of those, but I know they have to be done, so I know the only way is to push through it. One person whose content has helped me out a lot in my own personal journey is Brian Tracy, specifically his talks on self-discipline. The best way I've heard described is very simple. Self-discipline is the ability to make yourself do all the things you know you need to do, whether you feel like it or not. So if making a game is truly a goal you do want to achieve, then don't rely on motivation and instead remember this quote. Remember, self-discipline is difficult, but it is within your control. If you want some more practical tips on day-to-day scheduling, then another great video was the one I made in the beginning of 2020 when everything changed. It's all about my 8 tips for working from home effectively. You obviously need to adapt them to your own life, depending on how much time you have to dedicate to game dev, but in general, those tips should help. And if you're curious to know my own goals for 2023, the first one is something I've already spoken about. I want to launch my next Steam game, Total War Liberation. I want to launch it this year. The plan is in Q3, so hopefully around July, August. And this is also a good point to mention how the amount of detail you need in defining steps for your goals really depends on your level of experience with whatever you're trying to do. For example, in my case, I don't necessarily need a super detailed step-by-step guide to launch my game. This is something I've done many times, so it's something I already know how to do. Even though scope is always very tricky to get right, even with a lot of experience, I do believe the design that I want to build is doable in this time frame given my skill set. So to achieve this goal, launch this game, I don't have a super detailed step-by-step guide. I have a list of mechanics that I need to build and the belief that I'll be able to build them within the time limit. Another very important goal is one that was actually delayed. It's building a complete free course on making a game and making it multiplayer. Initially, this goal was meant to be completed last December. It was meant to be a much simpler game, but the scope kind of got out of hand, so it was delayed all the way to January. Now I'm aiming for mid to late January. It will be a complete, free, about 10-hour course on making a complete multiplayer game from start to finish. I'm really happy with how it's coming out, so I can't wait to finish it and hear what you all think. Then another goal for this year is something I've been waiting for ages. Unity Dots should be fully released around March-April, so around that time I want to make a really detailed course on making a game using Unity Dots. I'm really excited about this toolset and all the kinds of games that can be built and that will be built over the coming years, so I can't wait to explore that area during this year. Those are my 3 very clear goals for this year. For some more soft goals, I would like to do a bunch more live streams. I always enjoy doing these, but at the same time, I'm not really a very social person, so being on camera takes a ton of energy from me. Just like with game development in general, this is a question all about experience. I know the more I do them, the easier it will be, so I do want to do some more. Another goal is really just keeping the status quo. I always aim for publishing 3 videos per week, sometimes 2. This year, since I have those really complex goals of making a game and 2 courses, it won't be tricky to stick to that schedule, but I will try my best. In order to achieve that goal of keeping the same rate of videos, one of my most important goals this year is finally hiring an editor. So far I've been running this channel for almost 5 years and it's always been just me, writing, recording, editing, doing everything. So I've recently experimented with hiring some editors. If you've seen the video on Is Game Dev All About Luck, that one is the first video on this channel not edited by me. Hopefully hiring an editor will give me some more time that I can focus on doing the things that I actually want to do and the things that I'm actually good at. I want to do those things rather than doing editing which I don't enjoy and I'm not good at. And for some fun YouTube goals, I'd love to hit 500k subs. That would mean 85k subs this year, which is definitely doable. And for another round number, I'd love to hit 50 million total views, which would also mean about 18 million views this year. That would be something like 40% growth from last year, which would be pretty insane, so this is one of those moonshot goals. Even if I miss it, I will still be quite happy. These are my work-related goals. And for me, something that is absolutely essential to my life is fitness. I generally could not do everything that I do without working out. That really is the main reason that I've been able to work non-stop for the past about 7 years without suffering burnout. I don't have vacations or holidays or even weekends. I work every single day about 8 to 10 hours per day. The only way that I'm able to do that is because, well, first of all, I have my dogs. I really love them, and because of them, I take regular breaks to take them on walks. That really helps. And every day I also make a break to go to the gym to work out. So related to that, my personal fitness goals are to hit a new deadlift PR. I injured my back about a year ago, so 22 was mostly doing physio and just recuperating. Now that I'm back to normal, I'd love to hit a new PR this year. My max deadlift was 185 kilos, so I'd love to beat that. Obviously, all while focusing on safety first. Same thing on the bench press. I had to do some shoulder physio, so I had to pull back for a few months, but now back to normal. My max was 110 kilos, and I'd love to beat that. Lately I've been running quite a lot. Just recently did a 10k run in 48 minutes, which for me is insanely fast, the best I've ever done. Now I'd love to train to be able to do a 20k run. And finally get down to about 10% body fat, just briefly, just to see what my body looks like. Personally, I have a lot of trouble with food control. I have a huge appetite, so this is definitely a tough goal, and one that I've actually quote-unquote failed every year for many years. My advice to you is make some kind of fitness part of your life. You don't have to take it as seriously as I do. Personally, I love it, so I work out a ton, but you don't have to do it as intensely as I do. But whatever you do, definitely make sure you do something. Sitting for 16 hours a day is really not good. If you want to do this for a long time, if you want to still be making games in your 70s, then definitely take care of your health and fitness. Find out what works for you, what you like. Maybe you like running, maybe biking, maybe dancing, maybe bodybuilding, maybe powerlifting, maybe football. Whatever it is, find something fitness related you like and do it. Take some breaks, go out on walks, and drink plenty of water. Also, speaking of goals related to my fitness journey, here's a funny story. I know exactly when I started taking fitness seriously. I know that because it was exactly when I set a clear goal. And I know exactly what caused me to have that click in my brain. It was a video on Vitruvian Physics' channel. He was embarking on his one-year journey of competing in a bodybuilding show, and he clearly outlined the plan to achieve his goal. What specifically got me was when he talked about the clear plan with regards to macros, how many grams of protein, how many carbs and fats, how many calories total, and how the plan would change over time. When I saw that whiteboard, that's when something clicked in my head. After that, I finally developed a clear plan. Until then, I was learning about fitness, but I wasn't really following a clear plan. I wasn't really paying attention to calories or macros or training splits. But at that point, I wrote down and defined the clear steps to achieve my goals. For the next 6 months, I tracked every food that I consumed and every workout. Doing that really helped me reach my fitness goals. It was all because of that one video and that click in my brain, so hopefully this video of mine will trigger that click in at least some of you, which will hopefully mean that perhaps years from now you can look back on this video and remember that it was this video that made you set your goals and finally achieve them. Lastly, on the topic of goals, let me point out one very important thing. Setting goals is excellent. Just by clearly defining some goals, you're already doing great. And setting ambitious goals that are just slightly out of reach is also excellent. However, when you eventually don't achieve one goal, it is also extremely important not to be too harsh on yourself. Setting a goal is meant to be a positive thing, something that will help you achieve whatever it is you want, but if you then punish yourself because you didn't perfectly achieve it, well then at that point it's a case of going one step forward and 2 steps back. For example, my own goal of launching Total War Liberation by Q3 of this year, I believe I can achieve that goal, but also know it will be challenging, so there's a chance that I will quote-unquote fail that goal, and I might have to delay the game, possibly to only launch it in January or February of 24. If that happens, that will definitely suck, but hopefully I will be strong enough to not be too hard on myself because that would just not help at all. If that does happen, I hope I can take a deep breath and just keep working the plan. So remember, even if you quote-unquote fail to achieve your goal, you're still probably going to be better off than if you'd never defined the goal at all. There's that quote, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you will still land among the stars. Now go ahead, write down a clear plan and make this year you finally achieve your goal of making and publishing your game. I wish you the absolute best of luck in your game dev journey.